Good morning, everyone. Welcome back to day 3 of our Accessible Computer Science Education Fall Workshop. Thank you all very much for sticking it out and hanging in there, and hopefully it's all been worth the effort. I know yesterday we made a lot of progress on those white papers, and I expect we'll make even more progress today. I will have a few short announcements after the speakers about what happens after this workshop. But before we get to that, I just want to make sure that everyone knows about the hashtag that we have for those who are interested in amplifying what's going on here and what happens after it. You should be able to see that in the chat window in your view of the talks. Hashtag ACSEDWKSHP, Accessible Computer Science Ed Workshop. Okay, without any further ado, I'd like to introduce Ruth Farmer. Ruth is from CS for All, and she'll be talking to us about empowering all K12 students to learn computer science. Take it away, Ruth.
Good morning, and thank you everybody for all the work you've done this week to move this agenda forward. It's so important to all the work that we're doing at CS for All. So as Roy said, I am Ruth Farmer. I'm Chief Evangelist at CS for All. We are the national organization that's sort of the umbrella and the big tent for the computer science education movement. And I wanted to include this picture of this little girl. This was from a MESA conference I attended, and I spoke, and I had this little robot with me. And then at the end, I just handed it to this little girl, and you thought I had like given her the moon. She was so excited. And it's really a pleasure that I have in my work to be able to travel around the country and meet the people who are working so hard on computer science education like yourself, and see how you are empowering kids of all kinds. So CS for All is an organization of now more than 700 organizations. This picture was actually taken our first launch year, and I think at the time we had 200 members, and now we have hundreds more. And you know, you can see here all the banners of the different sponsors and partners. It's grown so much into a huge national community working on this from all different pieces of the puzzle, right? There's a whole lot of different inputs that go into a 12-year sequence of computer science education for all kids, and lots of organizations working together, which I like to talk about as like the long tail of computer science education, where there's a few big players that are doing big things, but really this gets done by the thousands of little inputs by local teachers, organizations, and leaders working on specific aspects of the issue. So CS for All does 3 primary things. We support local change. So we know this is local, change is local, permanent change is certainly local. So we support organizations in building capacity to deliver evidence-based computer science. We increase rigor and equity. So we want to make sure that the computer science that is delivered in the system that is built for this nation is equitable and rigorous. So it's wonderful to be like, oh, 1 million kids played this game, but that's not rigorous computer science education. We're looking at what makes this something that is scaffolded over time, is educating kids in a sequence that's going to give them all the resources they need to be successful. And then finally, we grow the movement. So we're looking to, I like to say, it's my job to invite everyone to the table and get more people to the table. Or rather, it's my job to convince others that computer science is their job, which is a fun thing to do. So a little bit of history. This all started actually many years before President Obama talked about it. Obviously, President Obama wasn't going to launch a new STEM initiative in the last year of his administration unless it had legs. And the reason that Computer Science for All was the final STEM initiative of the Obama administration had a lot to do with all the work that had been done by the community for the prior decade and more to get computer science moving and start messaging about the need for this and to disaggregate STEM. There was a long-term conversation about STEM, but people hadn't really broken it apart to say, you know, look, 70% of that STEM that we're talking about is actually tech and engineering, not biological science and earth science. And it's not that those topics are not important. They are important. It's that computer science is missing. So I like to say, you know, that the T and the E, right? If we were to write STEM out, it's really like a giant S, a tiny T, tiny E, and a big M in terms of how we're putting resources towards it at the federal level and from the community. So we're trying to kind of even that out. So as many of you know, in January of 2016, President Obama included a mention of computer science in his State of the Union. He said, in the coming years, we should build on that progress, offering every student the hands-on computer science and math classes that make them job ready on day one. So that was a big signal to the nation. And then on January 30th, they announced the Computer Science for All initiative, and at that time announced $125 million of immediate federal dollars and a $4 billion budget request into FY 2017 for computer science education. And that had everybody really excited, but as you probably know, the incoming Republican Congress did not even pass the budget for FY 2017 until April of 2017. So unfortunately, that was a very aspirational number that didn't come to pass, as is usually the case with Congress in an election year. But in the time that I was in the White House working on computer science for all, more than 548 organizations actually stepped up with commitments to move the needle for computer science education, which we felt was a huge win and really resulted in a lot of grassroots movement. So CS for All, the organization, launched officially at the White House in September of 2016. And this is a picture of all of us standing on the steps. These are the Navy steps that are directly across from the West Wing entrance. And this shows all the people that had come to that event, but we also had people from all over the country making commitments that were tuning in. And I believe there were 170,000 people on the live stream that day, which is one of the powers of like live streaming something from the White House. I think that you can't really beat that. So CS for All as an organization, we are focused on computer science for all students, and we strongly believe that including students with disabilities is critical to our mission. And you can see here that this is from Code.org's report on the state of computer science education, that this is 11 state data that students with disabilities are only participating in computer science classes at 59% of their representative population. So we clearly have a lot of work to do in addressing this, and CS for All as an organization cares a lot about the equity piece of things and really value our partnership with the accessibility community and making this a reality. So one of the ways that we're doing that is in 2018 in partnership with the Access Computing, Access CS for All program that Dr. Richard Ladner leads, and many of the people that are probably in this room, if I could see you, launched the CS for All Accessibility Pledge. And we used our big tent and our annual convening power to draw attention to the fact that CS education is largely exclusive or not accessible in the new tools that are being developed, the curriculum. And first we put out a blog that called for organizations to make their resources and tools born accessible. And then we called for organizations to sign a pledge. And that pledge was different depending on your organization. In some cases, if you were a funder, it's, are you paying attention to the accessibility accommodations of those you are funding? Or is that a criteria of your funding? And if you were, say, a curriculum developer or a tool provider, you know, is it baked into your software? Is it part of your design? From that to, you know, if you're an after-school program, are you upfront letting families know that you can make accommodations for students with disabilities? So we have this pledge, and it was signed by actually 105 organizations. So the purpose of the pledge is we, CS for All, along with our advisory board, are supporting the national community of computer science education content providers and institutions in making their current and future products and programs accessible for students with disabilities and learning differences. Another, you know, our three goals are we want to raise awareness of these issues, provide ongoing support to our pledge takers, and engage with the broader community. The outcomes of this so far have been pretty awesome. And we have 105 content providers that have made this commitment, and we're continuing to take new pledge takers. So you can see here is a map that shows where all these organizations are. So all over the country, lots and lots of activity. And many of these organizations obviously serve kids on a national level. But our goal ultimately is that everyone should be thinking about this and including this in their work. We have an advisory committee made up of a wonderful set of national leaders that are working on this. And this program is actually has been sponsored so far for the last 2 years by Northrop Grumman Foundation to support CS for All, supporting others in thinking about and acting on accessibility. And you can see here, this is a picture of a bunch of our accessibility advisory board members kind of hamming it up at the CS for All Summit back in 2018. So some updates on what we've achieved so far. In March of this year, we featured a blog, in response to the COVID crisis, specifically on education accessibility for students with disabilities. And so reached out to our community of experts and published some advice and resources for schools, districts, and parents on how to make sure that if kids are participating in remote education, that they're still getting access. In July of this year, we did a webinar featuring accessibility commitments from our community that we were updating on, and that included UW's Access CS for All program and the National Girls Collaborative Project. Then this October, we led a session on accessible CS at the 2020 International STEAM Summit that was led by Wonder Workshop, and that had a 6,000 person global audience. And then literally day before yesterday, we hosted the CS for All Commitment Showcase. We had about 8,000 attendees for that. And accessibility advocate Daryl Chill Mitchell, who had actually joined us during the launch in 2018, joined again to talk about accessibility. And I don't know if Deaf Kids Code is in the audience, but we were able to also feature a member of Deaf Kids Code as one of our question askers. So we did a segment in the event where we had kids asking Mitch Resnick, the founder of Scratch, questions about the program, and we included this young man. His name is Jabril from Deaf Kids Code, and he asked his question, and which was a very good question actually, and introduced himself and asked his question. And so we're making efforts to make sure that the messages we're putting out are inclusive. And also, I've much to her chagrin, made our new communications manager go back through everything we have done in the past and make sure there's alt text and other accessibility accommodations in our messaging and resources. So what is next for us? And I believe Roy put that link to that video in the chat. I encourage you to watch it. It's really charming. So what's next for us? We are tagging accessibility focused and compliant organizations in our CS for All member directory. So the CS for All member directory, you can search for organizations that are doing computer science education by audience, by age level, by topic. And if they have taken the accessibility pledge and they answer some criteria questions, we can tag that they are an organization that is paying attention to that. And we're using that as an incentive to get organizations to move on this. We are integrating accessibility rubrics and tools into the script workshop. So the script workshop is the workshop with school districts to help them build strategic plans for computer science. So we're working with our script team to bring rubrics in to make sure that school districts are considering accessibility in that design process. We're elevating and highlighting organizations that are meeting accessibility goals through blogs and webinars and other events. And then providing technical support and referral services for organizations seeking to improve accessibility of their programs and products and approaches. So we look forward to partnering with all of you in that work because, oftentimes I will get an organization that reaches out to me that says, hey, I've got a kid with a disability, and it's really great to be able to connect with folks from the community who have expertise in those particular needs. So what can you do to join and be part of us? I really, really strongly invite you to register to be a member of CS for All. We have members of all types, including researchers, as well as organizations at the district level or curriculum creators and funders. All kinds of organizations are members. It's no cost. You can just go to member.cs4all.org to sign up. We have a Slack channel that is basically for the entire community, and we have a sub channel on accessibility. So really encourage you to join there. Obviously, love to have you join our accessibility pledge as well. And then we have a newsletter that's really pretty frequent, and you're welcome to contribute items to be shared with our community, which I say is around the 12,000 mark. Obviously you can follow us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and Medium, or contact us if you want to talk more. So this is me, and you are more than welcome to email me, contact me, and let me know if you have any questions. And actually, you guys are all the experts in this, but one thing I just want to close with is just that the computer science education system for the US and for the world is being built right now as we speak, flying the plane while we build it. And so I don't think it could be more urgent to make sure that we get accessibility right from the beginning, because anytime you're trying to add something in later to a system, systems are very sticky. And so this has to be, we're already a bit behind the gun on this. So I think this deserves much, much more attention, and I'm committed to making sure it gets the attention it needs, because we have, we just can't afford to build a bigger version of an inaccessible system. Like, if we're going to get to for all, it really truly has to be for all at the ground level. So I really appreciate all of you doing this and your partnership in helping us make this a reality. Thank you.
And thank you, Ruth, for doing all the work that you and CS for All are doing. We do have a question in. Before we get to that, I might seize the microphone myself. Our breakout group has been looking at the role of curriculum in making CS Ed available for all. And we've started to spend a little time thinking about the lower primary or even pre-primary or pre-K levels. I wonder if you've got any thoughts on that age demographic.
Yeah, so I think one of the really challenging things with the early grades is you've got, for the most part, we have most teachers graduating college without any foundational knowledge of computer science in the first place, right? So you're looking at training teachers post, once they're in the workplace. So getting curriculum training to them at that level becomes a much bigger distributed problem than if you were doing it at the pre-service level. So one thing I would say is, if you're developing curriculum at the grade level, collaborate with the colleges of education to start to bring that in at the pre-service training level. So it's part of all of that training they're getting just to become a teacher in the first place, and thinking about the accessibility pieces of that. Are you talking more about developing curriculum or modifying curriculum that's already been developed?
We haven't gotten to that level of thinking yet.
Yeah, so there's a lot of stuff that's been built, right? So lots of stuff like Scratch, Tinker, lots of stuff has been built. And the problem, I think, is that many of those things are pretty embedded and hard to compete with. So one thing I would recommend thinking about is, how do you create curriculum that leverages those big platforms, but creates the accommodations and modifications that are going to make it easy for educators to deliver to all their students. And because you're just going to have a hard time competing with the $100 million of ed tech venture capital that's been put into the sort of for-profit platforms that are out there.
Yeah. Okay, thanks. We do have a bunch more questions for you. The first one is, can you say a little bit more about the accountability for the accessibility tagging in the CS for All directory to make sure that they're actually following the pledge?
Yeah, so that is a hard one, and we're looking at that, and that's for those of you listening that are on our accessibility advisory board, we're going to be bringing that task to you because going from a big tent to a, you know, how are you checking and reviewing and all of that is really challenging. So we are really early stage in that process. And part of it is how do we describe what they're doing and what are the things we're expecting them to do. So one thing is they need to explicitly have some kind of accessibility statement on their website that we can point to. You know, if we're referring people to them and they say that they care about this, they need to have that clearly stated. So we'll be working with our advisory consortium board members to develop a set of criteria that are on the front end before you get your tag, in my opinion. That's how I'm looking at it.
Right. Okay, our next question. In addition to coding, how are real world and life skills included in the CS for All approach?
So CS for All does not teach coding, right? We're not an organization that teaches coding or teaches teachers to teach coding. We are focused on putting computer science education into the system. From my viewpoint, computer science, and I'm sure you guys have all heard this, we're not here to like create more computer scientists, right? We feel this is a foundational skill that everyone needs to have, and that it's a matter of everyone having the opportunity to have the doors open to them for whatever future they choose, which could include computing, right? So that's sort of the computer science for all approach. So I think I really don't like the term coding. I think it's very, very narrow because it's a very, like, it's the application of computer science. But really, I like the word computing. I like to talk about all the ways that we are moving and controlling and adapting, modifying information with technology. So, you know, data science is in there. Obviously, that's a skill that can be applied in social studies and lots of other areas. But CS for All doesn't work directly with kids, and we don't work directly with teachers. We work with organizations, and there's 700 of them. So across those, we're covering all kinds of different skill development. And I feel like, unfortunately, the word code has become a real crutch because it's really so much more than that.
So you work with other organizations that then interface directly with teachers and students and all the different levels.
Yeah, correct. So like CSTA is a member of CS for All and they work directly with teachers. You know, Girls Who Code is a member of CS for All and they work directly with girls.
Great. Okay.
We don't offer curriculum ourselves.
Right. Okay. Got it. We have another question. How do you think the new administration might change the landscape for CS for All? What are some actionable activities you're pursuing as an organization in addition to seeking pledges from partners?
Yeah, so I'm pretty hopeful about the new administration. I have a little bit of insider knowledge, so I'm confident that they are a STEM positive and a CS positive, science positive group of people that are going to be working on this. And you know, the efforts to get the community moving, I think will just be more in collaboration with the administration. So, you know, the way that the CS for All commitments work is, there's a couple of things about commitments. One is we want organizations, so we have our pledge, the CS for All Accessibility Pledge, which is about making what you're doing accessible to all kids. And then we also have something called CS for All commitments. And those are ways that an organization can step up and kind of put a flag in the sand and say, we're going to do X for Y population by Z date kind of thing. And that's one of the ways that we measure impact and measure what's going on in the country, because there's not a lot of really great data collection at the national level on computer science education or the accessibility or availability of it. I'm looking forward to, you know, now that we have 700 members, it's really easy for us to package up messages and come together as a community to share messages with the administration and work with them to highlight what we're doing and try to drive action. So I think there's going to be lots of opportunities going forward.
Great. We've got one more question, and if we can answer this one quickly, we might be able to try and share that video that we have the link for. The last question that we have is, what is a good balance, in your opinion, between focusing on making the curriculum accessible versus the tools themselves?
So I think the tools absolutely need to be accessible. Absolutely. And frankly, I don't think legally a school district should really even be purchasing tools that aren't accessible. So I'd love to see some effort on the part of the federal regulators as well as the state folks to, you know, make this an issue. And, you know, millions of dollars of venture capital is going into creating tools, and it is like ridiculous that they might create something that's not accessible. So I think, you know, and broadly, lots of people are doing this badly across the entire internet. Like, lots of people are doing this badly. And I just noticed recently that I think it was Medium or Twitter had added the ability to add alt text to your talk, to your pictures, but it's limited to 250 characters, or limited in characters. I'm like, why would you limit the number of characters? Anyway, so go ahead with the video. I just want to share, this is Ms. Resnick, founder of Scratch, taking a question from a student from Deaf Kids Code.
All right, let's play that video.
What's the next question?
Yep.
Our next student says, "Hi, my name is Jabril. I'm a student at the Pennsylvania School for the Deaf and one of the first cadets for Deaf Kids Code. I'll be teaching Scratch to other deaf kids soon. I love coding and hope to become a tech founder myself someday. My question for Mitchell is, how did you think of the big ideas to invent Scratch? I mean, it's big work, hard work, and a dream, maybe a passion. How did you get everything you needed to successfully invent Scratch?
Thanks, Jabril. First of all, let me just say I'm just really impressed with the work that you're doing in teaching other kids to code. That seems like really important work, and it's great that you're doing that. I also really love your question, because I love the way that you recognize the importance of passion, that passion is a key to success and work on big projects. And I really agree with you, because I think when we're passionate about something, that we're willing to work longer and harder and persist in the face of challenges and difficulties. So I think that if you really want to succeed at something, you need to be passionate, so you're willing to push on and keep working at it. And I think those of us working on Scratch have been really passionate about it, because we really care about providing new opportunities for kids. We want to help kids be able to create new things and to learn new things. So that passion for us is what keeps us going and coming up with new ideas for Scratch. I think one other key to success on the project is that we brought together a team that was diverse in lots of different ways. That we came from different disciplinary backgrounds. We had computer scientists and educators and psychologists and people from child development and design. And we had lots of different types of background. And I think that type of diversity is critical to creativity and success in big projects. let's see the next question.
Awesome. Thanks so much.
Yeah, thank you, Ruth. It's a very spot on to let your passions drive your interests like that. Thank you again for your great talk, Ruth.
Great seeing you guys.
You too.